It's Ted Padromo. We're on our Tuesdays with Ted. And we have Mike McMahon, who, gosh, I didn't even know when we met. It's been years, but I don't know how we met.
We met through Joel Com with the book.
Oh.
I knew of you before then because of your LinkedIn for Business book, but that's how we officially met.
Well, okay, cool. Now we know the story.
So
today we're going to talk about raising your price during a recession. First, we say, is there a recession? What is a recession? We could go into that forever, but
I suppose it depends on whether or not you listen to the news or you watch what's happening to your money, right? I mean, I know my dollar doesn't buy as much today as it did 6 months ago or 3 or 4 years ago. So, and the housing prices are going down, not up, So, which for those of us, you obviously included, that live here in California, prices going down, if you're looking to buy, is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. So you're a sales consultant. You teach people how to sell. You have different coaching packages. Mm-hmm. Are you raising your rates now, or are you keeping them the same?
At the moment, I'm keeping them the same, but a few months into COVID, when everybody was rightfully, scared. I mean, there was a lot going on. There was certainly a lot of uncertainty. I doubled my prices. So everybody else was lowering their prices, trying to figure out how to hang on, and I just took a different approach. And I literally doubled my prices. I actually did two things. Arguably, you could say I quadrupled, not my prices, but my earning ability. Because the first thing I did is I cut my 6-month program down to a 90-day program. Because as I looked back at everything, the successes I'd had with my clients, I realized that we were getting everything done in 90 days, and then the following 90 days was really just nice follow-up. And the truth of the matter is, I'd happily keep up with my clients if they had a question. Just because the 90 days are over, that's not the end. That's really, in many ways, the beginning. So by trimming it back to 90 days from 6 months, I doubled my availability. But at the same time, I did, in fact, double my fees. And it did not hurt my enrollment process at all. As a matter of fact, I'd say it actually made it easier in some ways.
Right. I just since we talked last week, I wrote an email the other day about that.
I read it.
So if I doubled my prices and I lost 50% of my clients.
Isn't that wonderful?
Great. I'm making the same amount of money if we're doing half the work.
Half as much work, yeah. So I've always been a big fan of raising fees. I mean, obviously the value you provide has to justify the fee you charge. You can't charge more than you're worth. That just doesn't work. So if you want to make more money, if you want to raise your fees, make sure the problem you're solving justifies it. And the value comes down to, think about what it's costing the prospect or that client to not have your solution, because it's costing them something, whether it's peace of mind, anxiety, stress, freedom, income, revenue, whatever. It's costing them something. And that cost is the measure of how much you can raise your fee. But literally every company I have ever gone into, back when I was a W-2 employee years ago, I've raised the prices. Not a little bit, a lot. And never in all of those companies, it was usually software, because I spent a lot of time working with software and software sales.
Yeah.
Never did we raise prices and actually lose sales. In every single case, we increased sales. Now, there were some salespeople that didn't necessarily sell more, but as a whole, we sold more.
Right. So you don't talk about dollars per hour either. You have packages where you sell.
Yeah,
you sell results.
Well, that's what people buy. People don't buy coaching. They don't buy your time for an hour. I'm not saying people would never do it. Obviously, some will. There's always exceptions to everything. But what people buy, what they get out of it. And so, if you're a coach or a consultant, if you sell a product, it doesn't matter what you're selling. A lot of people kind of got hung up on features and benefits a long time ago, because that was such a big thing that was taught. And everybody thinks that every feature is a benefit. It's not. If I can't directly use that thing, it's always going to be a feature. And so if you're trying to sell me something that doesn't add value to what I want to do or who I am or help me save time or whatever, you're really actually adding cost. And so you just have to understand that people aren't paying by the hour. It's like, I mean, you've done a fair amount of technical work in your career, and and it's not uncommon. I mean, if you're going to hire a coder or some type of programmer or whatever, you're going to pay an hourly fee, right? But
yeah,
you're not doing it because of the hourly fee. You're doing it because of what they can do for you.
Right. Yeah, you can hire somebody and they can try to figure it out and you charge a lower rate, but I'd rather pay more and have the expert who's done it a million times.
Yeah, the first software company I took over so many years ago, it's when I stepped out of being in sales and into management. Boy, it was great software, educational software, but the company had this idea that they needed to build their own in-house CRM and everything. And, well, that's great. Just because you're a software company and you have programmers doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. and the first guy that they hired, it was because the bean counter was the one. No offense to the people in the accounting department, but the bean counter was the one responsible for hiring the programmer, and he went with the lowest bid. And oh man, was that expensive!
That always puzzled me why people would build their own solution when there's so much out there. If you build your own, you got to maintain it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Your overhead costs for maintenance are through the roof.
Oh yeah. Later on, when I was running a practice a software company for law firms, they had this idea that they needed to eat their own cooking. So the sales team was married to the same platform that they were selling to law firms. And it wasn't that you couldn't do really amazing stuff with it. You could, but it was a very specialized version for the sales team compared to what they sold to the public. Well, I sat down and did the math, and we figured out that it actually was costing the company probably a little over $1 million in sales revenue every year, because there was 2 to sometimes 3 months out of the year that the development team was spent working on this internal system to make sure it would do everything we needed, versus getting a new release of the product out. And once I showed the owner, it wasn't very hard for him to figure out. That was the end of that. No, so we switched over to a dedicated system, NetSuite actually, which is way overkill for most people, but it was a great solution.
Right. And how do you put a price on that? It's like,
yeah. Well, I'll give you another example. How many people don't use 2 monitors with their computer? I mean, it's different if you're traveling in your kind of nomadic lifestyle, but a lot of people won't use 2 monitors for any number of reasons. But research proves that you actually get more done with 2 monitors. Not the fact, it's not just the idea that you can drag from the left to right and all that good stuff, which I love being able to do because it makes stuff easier. But they also figured out that the people, even if they did goof off at work, and everybody does, whether you're at home or in an office, having 2 monitors got them back into the work they were supposed to do sooner. So there's something said for that.
Yeah. When that first started, the 2 monitor thing was hard to justify because there was no research.
Yeah.
But trying to go to your boss, say, okay, I need to double my monitor budget for the year. And there's no data. I did that. I was in IT before IT was IT. Right. It was like,
what did they call it before it was called IT?
IS, information systems.
Oh, yeah.
But trying to get money for that. Like, well, you guys are just an expense. Like, well, we have all this equipment and we have to maintain it. It was a hard sell.
One of the company, the very company that we figured out we needed to quit making our own CRM and just just buy one off the shelf, which has been in virtually every company actually. But the owner, because we again had our own tech support team and entire staff, he would just keep computers forever. I mean, forever until they died, and then they'd rebuild.
Yeah,
and they'd keep them again until they died. And so I had two different salespeople on 2 different occasions go a day and a half without a system because they didn't have, I call them battle ready spares. But even if they had a spare, you still got to put everything back together. And so you just can't justify that. Sometimes you have to invest in your business, and you need to know what the shelf life of whatever it is you're using. But yeah, it's funny because did you ever read any Robert Cialdini or Cialdini books? Do you remember Influence? So Influence was kind of one of the big ones. He had a story in there about a business owner. They owned a jewelry shop, and they had a whole display of turquoise. They just could not sell. It just wasn't selling. Months had gone by, and it hadn't sold. And so the owner, in frustration, told the the helper to cut the prices in half, to just blow that stuff out. Well, I don't know how they, it was handed them a note. I don't know how the owner wrote the information down, but somehow the employee thought it meant to double the prices. so that's exactly what they did. And interestingly enough, within the next week, they sold out every single piece. I mean, it flew off the shelves. And so price oftentimes is, we just have this cognitive predisposition to the idea that if it's more expensive, it's better, right? So we want to talk about raising prices in a recession. If your value is such that you deliver a tremendous solution, there is always an audience for what you have to sell at any price, right? When I created a program for coaches, sales mastery for coaches, and one of the first things I talked about was pricing and that whole paradigm, because a lot of people get this idea. They think, well, I need 10 clients and I want to make $10,000 a month, so $1,000 a month times 10 clients. If I can get them on a yearly retainer, that's great.
Yeah.
You'll starve to death. You might starve to death, but it's really hard to maintain 10 clients unless you put the right systems and processes and things in place. But I mean, it's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you have a $25,000 package and you only, at that stage of the game, to make the same kind of money, you're good with 5 clients, right?
Right.
And if the solution that you have, because people, in my experience, and I think everybody has probably recognized this, high-end clients are not interested in one-year programs. They want speedy solutions. They'll write the check. I mean, there are people out there that will write the $10,000 check if you can solve their problem today, right? So you're going to make more money, solve bigger problems. So that's where, if you put together the right packages, $50,000, $25,000, $10,000, $5,000, if you have those right packages, the $5,000 package is grouped, by the way, so that you're still only working one day a week for that group, or one day every other week, or one day a month, whatever you decide for your group. Imagine what your life would be like if you want to make $500,000 and you can get there with 8 clients, 12 clients. It's a lot easier than trying to service 10 clients a week. And there's a lot of people that's what they do. I don't know how they do it, but that's what they try to do.
Yeah. Back in the 90s, when I was a network manager consultant, I'd work at places like 2 or 3, 4 years. They'd bring you on. Basically, you were like their staff as a contractor, and you could get away with you. Now it's so much easier having 1 or 2 clients full time than having 10 or 20 clients and running all over the place fixing stuff.
Sure. Yeah. One of my first consulting clients, do you remember Peregrine Software?
Yeah.
So I don't know who they are now. They changed names. So they got bought, and it's a different name, but very high level enterprise software. And, and so he actually was the guy that became the very first outside consultant, because they used to do everything in-house. And then they realized that there were limits to what they could do. And so he just got this sweetheart deal because he was the first guy, and he was an insider in a lot of ways. So he had a staff of 15 programmers that all they did was, work with Peregrine Software. I mean, and we're talking like Shell Oil and, Halliburton and IRS. And so, he, but all his guys, with very, very few guys and gals, with very few exceptions, they'd be on staff at that location for, year, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. And he'd be, collecting a couple $100 a month or an hour for each one of them.
Right.
It's a good gig if you can get it.
Well, it's what they perceive as valuable to you. So, that it goes down. Whenever I used to fix a computer for the banks, the computer was down for a couple hours. They lost millions of dollars in transfer money.
Sure. Yeah. I want that.
Their perception was, well, I'm going to use this old equipment instead of buying the new equipment. It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you save money in the wrong places.
Right.
Yeah.
They're paying more maintenance costs on an old computer that's about 1/10 the power of the new computers.
Yeah.
It would go down. It was harder to fix.
I remember, so I've been around the computer game for a long time too, and I can remember when, a mainframe filled a room.
Yeah.
And so when it became obsolete and you were just pushing it off into the dump, there was $1 million just getting thrown away pay, but you did it anyway. It's kind of like when, I did a lot of large call centers and we used predictive dialers. The first predictive dialer I bought, we spent $350,000 on the dialer, and then by the time we did programming and everything else and customizations, we were $500,000 into it. When we replaced it 4 years later, we were able to replace it for $150,000 with something that was faster, with more capabilities, and easier to take care of. Because went from a Unix platform to an open source platform. It was just the difference was amazing. We didn't have to have $100,000 a year programmer on staff. It's just amazing.
Right.
It's amazing how things change.
Well, you remember the perception of pricing during the Y2K. They had to update these systems. It was crazy.
The world's going to come to an end. We might launch nuclear missiles if we don't get things done.
Yeah, that's a good year for me. Because they had to do it. They perceived, well, what's going to happen if we don't prepare for this?
Well, yeah, price is perception. So one of the things I talk about with clients, and it doesn't matter what their business is, right? It's always about positioning. And so if you are positioned as the go-to resource on the higher end, you can charge more, right? Again, it still comes down to the quality of your product or the service you deliver. You have to solve problems that matter. If you're solving a $5 problem and the solution is $1,500, you're going to have a really hard time making that sale. On the other hand, if your solution's $25,000, but the result is worth $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, and it's going to be valuable to them for 5 to 7 years or longer, your $25,000 is nothing.
Right.
So
kind of like the personal computers back in the day. I know a guy that ran a business for fixing them, and he was charging $75 an hour or something.
Oh, that's scandalous.
Yeah. And then I think get to the point, well, it's going to take me 5 hours to fix this. Why don't I just give me a new computer for $300? And he would sell so many new computers because, why fix this old one? I could spend hours trying to fix it. I'll just transfer the data over. So it kind of balances pricing that way. He always carried a couple extra computers in his van.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. There's always the trade-off. Look, money. A lot of people get hung up on money and they think that they can't ask that much. But, money is just an idea. It's just a thought. It's got nothing to do.
Right.
There's really nothing in money. So again, it comes down to how valuable can you be to your client.
Yeah.
To me, that's really always the key. It's sometimes people think that they need to put more and more and more into whatever their solution is in order to raise the price, and that's really oftentimes not actually the truth. More often than not, I work with my clients and we start peeling stuff away, realizing that it actually makes it cumbersome. It makes it difficult to understand. What you really want is a crystal clear result, and if you can solve one big problem, right, then that's one thing. But if you can tie it together to maybe 2 or 3, now you have a really nice solution. So yeah, how about you? Are you going to raise your prices during this potential downturn in the economy?
I'm in the peeling away mode right now.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, so for me, and I think anybody that really wants to, if they've established themselves at what they do and they're good at it, I would rather work with fewer people at a higher fee, and at a fee to where if I need to, I do not work weekends. I don't work after business hours at all. Right? I don't even do client calls on Fridays unless it's an emergency. And the truth is, I couldn't even tell you the last time I worked a Friday with a client. But I would rather charge more and be able to give more to that client than to have to feel like I need to rush off of a conversation with somebody so that I can get to the next call because I have to take care of a certain number of clients. That's just me.
Oh, juggling 10 or 20 clients is hard, no matter what.
It's exhausting. So I don't do that. I work with about 3 or 4 clients at a time.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's the best way.
That doesn't mean you can't have your group solution so that you can service more people that aren't necessarily looking to spend that kind of money for that one-on-one, because that's really what it is. People are paying for levels of access. Obviously, people that are paying $25,000 and $50,000 to work with me,
Right.
or they get a lot of access. You know, they can call whenever they want. You know, and we talk
You
as
solve
long as we
one
need to.
problem and charge them 50,000, and they save $1 million or something. Or 100,000. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all relative. You know, and oftentimes when you're putting together solutions where they can now bring in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month forever.
Yeah.
I mean, literally forever. You know, what's that worth? I mean, I've paid a lot of money to get to that point. You know, it's worth
Right.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about what you do?
Well, that's pretty easy. The easiest thing to do is go to A2Z businessgrowth.com. I happen to be a duct tape marketing certified consultant, amongst other things. But that one, the nice thing about that site is they can download some really good materials that'll be helpful, regardless of what kind of business they have. But I think marketing, especially these days, I think marketing is probably the biggest challenge, you know, everybody faces. I mean, everybody needs good quality leads. They need a way to speed that process up. You know, so yeah, that's one of the things that we like to do. My business partner, Teresa Ibrahim, and I, we have this process we call Relationship Accelerator. You know, so if you're working one-on-one with clients, then, you know, it can take a long time to build that relationship to the point you're ready to go to the next step. So we have this process where we shorten that thing down to about a 10-minute thing. So you know, and it's really not complicated. It's actually pretty easy to do. Anybody can do that. So
yeah,
you know, that's a fun thing that helps keep your calendar full of quality prospects. That's cool. In here from Scotland.
It's getting harder and harder to break through the noise, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think it is. So to me, it's all about positioning, though, right? So, you know, most people don't understand how to correctly position themselves in this social world. So,
yeah.
So I don't know, is the audio still rough on your end from me?
It chops up now and then. But
yeah, that's frustrating.
Good. Okay. What's your website again?
A2Z businessgrowth.com. So it's the letter A, the word 2, T-O, the letter Z, businessgrowth.com.
Cool. Well, great, Mike. It was great catching up with you again.
Good talking to you, Ted.
And we'll see you around.
All right, sounds great.
Okay.